he saw like clouds and he was just looking at the clouds passing overhead, and when he looked, he saw a very big, what you call it, the die-die, no? He called it the die-die. He said, never seen one, and take a good look at it. It was like a bit hairy, and he was sleeping on some bush ropes, and he gets scared about the die-die and started to run down.
It's only me.
Hello.
So I might be putting this out before another video due to the fact that a lot of people like part 1 of my monster hunting diaries.
Mm-hmm.
I say a lot of people at this point. It's just gone up, and I don't know, 5 people said, "Don't make us wait."
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Maybe 2 people said that.
I always fall for your exaggerated numbers.
What do you mean my exaggerated numbers?
Like, if 2 people said it and you'd say to me 5 people said it and I'll believe the 5.
You shouldn't believe everything you hear. Fake news. Fake stats. So...
Now I know.
Everyone alright? Good. I got that over and done with. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for further updates and hit the notification bell. That's because I just watched that last video. By the way, if I'm acting a bit stiff, I slept funny on my neck. I haven't told you that, had I?
No, you kept that to yourself.
Yeah, I've had ibuprofen.
What?
Yeah.
You really kept that quiet. Why didn't you tell me?
I like to keep things a surprise for you.
I'm so surprised.
Yeah, surprise! There's a bloody fly in here.
Uh-oh. Insects, your favourite friends.
So, when I last left the story of my trip to Guyana, just to recap, I'd travelled from London to Georgetown, and then we'd taken a coach to a town called Letham, and we just embarked upon a 7-hour walk, or words, distances to that effect, and ended up in a town called Taushida. Now, I say township. It was a village, but if you can imagine a village that's spread out over several miles, probably with, 15-minute walk between your house and your neighbour's house.
No central part to the village.
No, not that we
Any
saw.
shops?
No. They didn't even have electricity.
Oh wow, that's
No
a
electricity.
proper village.
No running water. Nothing. It's literally in the middle of nowhere.
All right.
I mean, when you say the middle of nowhere,
wouldn't say it was a town then.
No, village. I think it was.
Yeah, I guess.
But it was a proper kind of sort of third world, with no mod cons or anything, and they lived in huts with straw roofs. And I'm sure you're all wondering, well, Mr. Biffo, where did you go to the toilet when you were in the village of Taushida in Guyana?
Where did you go to the toilet?
Well,
in a well?
More or less. Yes, very good.
Hopefully not where they got their water from.
It was about from where we'd set up our tents, which we were sort of set up near a kind of eating area, which was literally this just sort of lean-to. And they had like a sort of open fire that they cooked our food on. The lean-to was sort of next to a tree, and I had a bench. But about, I don't know, I'm terrible with distances. A 5-minute walk, if that, away from the eating area.
Of course, 5 minutes depends. The walk depends on how fast you're walking.
Yeah, okay.
And how much you need to go. In
that temperature, it was a 2-hour walk. There was a brick wall that was just sort of quite low. When I was sitting behind it, it came up to about here.
Okay, all right. So you had a nice view.
Yeah, so I could see everyone still eating. And they could see me, and it was basically just a plank with a hole in it.
I'm sure that was great for the appetite.
And the first time I used it, there was a massive spider in the hole, and I had to put my bare bottom over the hole.
We know how you feel about spiders. You sat on the dunny with a spider in it.
Oh, look at you being all Aussie.
Well, isn't that what a dunny is?
I don't know.
Like an outdoor toilet, like
okay, it was a dunny
toilet.
Yeah. Well, I had no choice. I wasn't putting my hand in the hole because the hole was full of shit. I don't know when it ever got cleaned, if it ever got cleaned. There were cobwebs all over this thing. And the one and only time I did a poo on this toilet.
You managed to.
Yeah, I only did a poo once, and we'll get into why in a bit. The one time I did, there was no toilet paper. However, there was a child's book hung up. And it was one of those kids' books with very stiff paper. So it wasn't kind of like...
It wasn't your charming
it was a hardback children's picture book. I had to wipe my arse on. Sorry to get specific about it, but you're going to want to know. So we'll just get that out of the way now.
Okay.
So we had a night in Taoshida. We had something to eat. They brought rice with them. And that night we had a really lovely curry. They had meat hanging up in a tree, which was drying. So it was kind of like beef jerky, but once it was mixed in with all the spices and the like, it was actually not bad. Surprisingly nice meal, considering where we were so far from civilization.
Had you brought the meat with you on the trek?
I'm not sure.
Or was it in the
don't
village?
think so. I suspect it had been hunted, given how some of our meals later on were provided for us.
Oh, goodness. So hunted by the locals.
Yeah.
And then someone...
Yeah, I mean, it was just like a carcass hanging up in the tree.
Do you know what animal it was?
I never asked.
You didn't want to know.
Didn't want to know.
As long as it didn't have like a human shape.
Yeah, well, we'll get into the cannibalism later. I'm not joking. So we had a nice meal. We'd set up the tents near this sort of eating area, and as we were settling or getting ready to settle down for the night, it got dark. We had a little emergency in that there was a bushfire on the horizon. That was, we were warned that we might have to be woken up in the night. You could see it. You could see the flames.
You could see it drawing closer.
Not necessarily drawing closer in the sun that I sat there and looked at it, but you could certainly see the flames, like a long line of red. I had a photo of it years ago. It never turned out very well, but we were warned that we might have to be woken up in the night and evacuate the village.
To try and get out of there.
Yeah. But I was knackered, so it was time to, I went to bed, and I did wake up in the middle of the night to find my fly screen just absolutely covered with bugs, like big ones and just millions of flies. But I slept okay. I mean, the stars are like nothing I've ever seen. I mean, you and I have been to Joshua Tree. This was that times 1,000.
That's phenomenal.
Properly seeing the Milky Way.
When you're away from the city and the suburbs, and you can see how many stars there actually are in the sky.
I don't think I brought my glasses with me because it was one more thing to sort of add to the weight. So I only had contact lenses, and so I couldn't really see terribly clearly without my glasses and without my contact lenses in that I woke up. But it was still bright enough, the light from the stars and the moon, to actually still see them even with my terrible eyesight. I think on a subsequent night I did just put my contact lenses in when I woke up in the middle of the night because I had to see it. It was amazing. So we woke up the next morning, and Damon Curry, who you may remember was the Amerindian chieftain, the Arawak clan leader who was descended from an eagle, he asked me if I was okay the next morning, because apparently I've been screaming in my sleep. I've been calling out, and I said to him, what sort of screaming?
Like, and distress screaming.
Yeah.
Because you do some strange noises in your sleep. I mean, you've laughed, you've eaten, or dream eaten, so... Well. You have called out, but not really. I did the other night.
But this got everyone's interest. The fact that I'd had
nightmares,
had night terrors,
or a visitation.
Well, this is what the theory was, that because Damon, as he was sort of explained, that there was a lot of sort of supernatural energy in the area, and I remember Richard saying to me, it could be, and what I thought his explanation for why I've been calling out in my sleep was that I had wind malaria, And I was like, what?
Wind
What's
malaria?
wind malaria?
I've never heard of wind
Richard
malaria.
found this hysterical. This is Richard Freeman, who was kind of ostensibly leading on our expedition. No, and what he'd said was a window area.
Oh.
Have you heard of those?
No.
No, it's where the dimensions or something are this thin, so weird things from the other side can come through.
So it's like where the veil between the worlds is at its
Yes.
thinnest or something.
Yes, you want to move over a bit. I know
Oops. I can't see you properly otherwise.
I can't lean back further than that.
Oh, I can zoom it out a bit.
Don't matter.
So it wasn't wind malaria.
No. Well, there is no such thing as wind malaria.
Yeah, there's no.
So no,
Bitten by the wind.
it definitely wasn't wind malaria.
Okay.
Anyway, the plan for that day was while we were in Tashida, because we were gonna, I think the following day, we were gonna head on to somewhere else. There was a plan, but for that day we were going up a mountain where at the top of this mountain there was a burial chamber that had been discovered by, I think his name was Moses, the guy, not the Moses, a Moses.
Moses is like hanging out on top of mountains.
Yes, that's very
apparently.
true. Yeah. Go tell it to the mountain. We had to get up this mountain, which, bear in mind, the previous day we'd done a hike in the middle of which there had been a cliff which nearly killed us. So we were going up this mountain to see these bones in this burial chamber that had been found. This mountain that sort of overlooked the village. I mean, I've looked at photos and video of this mountain and it looks like a hill. It doesn't look like a mountain.
Right.
But
climbing up it,
yeah,
it felt like a mountain.
We all had with us, right, because we didn't want to carry everything, and I think we each had with us a bottle of water like that. I had my water.
I would not be able to cope.
To get to the mountain, by the way, we hadn't burned to death in the night, but to get...
Thank goodness.
But to get through the mountain, we had to go through what was a forest that had obviously suffered a forest fire at some point. I remember that, the trees, you'd kind of just, they were all jutting out all the branches, but no foliage on them at all, and the ground was just ash.
With the trees all black.
Brittle, yeah, you just like smash through them and kind of brush against them, and they're just kind of, that. And that and the thorns. There were a lot of thorns.
Oh, the thorns survived the fire. Of course they did.
So we all got a bit ripped to shreds. So going up, we went up, God knows how long it took us to get up the mountain. By the time I was at the top of the mountain, I had drunk all my water, as had everyone else.
That's not a good sign.
But I was one of the first couple at the top, and there was a cave up there with these clay pots in.
Can I just ask, do you know what the reason is why the burial chamber was on top of a mountain?
Ceremonial, I suppose.
That's quite a
well, they have a theory
difficult place.
because the I mean, I'll get to it, but the skeletons in the pots, and we had to sort of, I think, lift the lid off one. One was just open to the elements, such as they were there, which was sort of sun and then rain once a year, but within the cave. But they had jewels and stuff in them. One was an adult, one was a child.
And were these like village chief?
Well, this is what the theory is, that it was done up there to because Lisa Mallam, who was with us, I think she is qualified now, but she was an archaeology student at the time. So I think that was the theory, that it was probably a chief and his son, or a chief's wife and his son, that sort of thing, so they could look out over the village.
Oh, and that would explain why they were buried on a mountain.
Yeah, well, not buried, put in some pots.
Oh, okay. Wait, hang on. Their entire skeleton was put in a pot?
Well,
or their body was put... How big were these pots?
They're quite big.
Would they fit a human body?
Certainly a child's body, and they had. Yeah, there was all the bits in there.
I'm not going to ask how they got the bodies into the pots.
Squashed.
I pickle they.
I pickle. So, anyways, Richard and Lisa, I think, were the last couple to reach the top. And at some point, and I don't remember when, Lisa fell off the mountain. I'm laughing.
Oh, no.
It wasn't funny, but
that sounds pretty
this was
serious.
our first full day, if you like, or first day of exploring, and Lisa fell off the mountain. Now, there's a slight debate as to how far she fell, Richard claims it was 17 feet. I think it was less than that. Nonetheless, she did fall off the mountain, off a ledge.
That's still pretty serious.
And she did break her thumb.
Oh, no. And there's no doctors, no hospitals in the area.
Lisa is and was as tough as anything. And she, went through the rest of the trip with it just sort of a bandage around it.
It's gotta hurt so much.
Yeah.
Your thumb as well. You need it for everything.
But she, so that was a little bit alarming. Anyway, so we carried on. We all had to smoke a cigarette because tobacco there is sacred. So we all had to take a puff of a cigarette and blow it out into the cave to show your respects, which we had to do somewhere else later on that day. Anyway, so we had a look at the bones, and the skulls were passed around, which was a little bit grim. But,
You held the skull?
Yeah. I'll drop in a photo now. Yeah. Human skull.
I mean, that's...
It's cool. I'm glad to say, I'm happy to say I've done it for the 6th or 7th time in my life. No, I haven't done it before. I haven't never done that before. So we did all that, and then we had to head back down. And we'd left in the morning quite early because of the temperature. But by the time we set out again to head back down, the sun was high and the heat had started again.
And none of you had water.
We had no water to head back down, and that is the thirstiest I've ever been. And I was going down in some respects, if you ever climbed a mountain, is tougher than going up because you're constantly stopping yourself.
Yeah.
Going up, you're just, you're pulling yourself up with your feet.
Yeah.
And going down, it's trying to stop yourself falling. And, there were no paths up this mountain. You just had to find a path to go up there. They didn't... they hadn't built a tourist trail or whatever. People didn't go up there.
No railings to hold on to.
Yeah. So it was, and it took a couple of hours to get back down, I remember, because the thirst, I've never been so thirsty.
I just wouldn't be able to.
Even the day before, I wasn't that thirsty. But this, because of the heat and the dryness and the bloody petrified forest that we were walking through. So we got back to camp, and I think I may have been the first back. That makes it sound like I'm superhuman. It wasn't. I was so driven by
by the thirst.
And Richard was held back because of Lisa, who was obviously injured. And there was part of me that thought, should I stay back? But I was so thirsty, and it was just consumed everything. So we got back, and I remember someone produced a pineapple or slices of pineapple.
Wow.
My God,
it must have been like heaven.
It was so good. And then the others turned up, and we sat around and we ate, and the plan was to wait a few hours, and I remember us chatting, having a laugh at the food table, and the plan was we were going to go out again that evening to see a sacred stone or rock that was sacred to the village. I was starting to kind of think, there were circumstances here where the plan for the next day might be thrown into jeopardy.
Right, and what was...
And I spoke, I think, to John, Orin, and Chris, because Richard was very much, plough ahead, because we were heading towards eventually this... It was called a pond. It was basically a lake where the giant anaconda had been sighted.
Right.
That was the goal.
Yeah. And you had to get there within the 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, there and back. Yeah.
Oh, there and back. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So even more of a rush.
So I remember asking Damon, with John Orin, what is the plan exactly for tomorrow? And Damon, casual as anything, because this trek was nothing to him. He kind of said, well, we're going to have to get up probably about 4 a.m. because we've got to trek in the dark. And then we've got to go across another mountain. It's a mountain path. And, okay, tell me a bit more about this mountain path. Well, it's about this wide. And we'll be dark, pitch dark. And how high is the mountain? Well, the one we climbed today, 2-3 times as high. And okay, right, one of us has got a broken finger. The rest of us have all nearly died of heat stroke. This is day 2. Then he brought up, I think someone asked, like, so will we see anything else on the way? Well, yeah, there's a cave that some dragons are rumoured to live in, or dragons rumoured to live in.
You can't resist dragons.
Well, hang on.
Even rumoured dragons.
When we pushed a bit further on the dragon, the cave, by all accounts, was some sort of hollow tube from one side of the mountain to the other, and the noise it made sounded like dragons. So you're very far away again.
Oh,
and you keep disappearing out of shot.
I can't see you. Hang on, one. Or the talk of thirst.
So, where is this cave? Right. Oh, right. It's kind of along the mountain path. And what causes the noise? Wind. Well, how strong the wind? Well, I think some people have been blown off it when they've gone across the cave. Okay, right. I know
people have been blown off the mountain.
Mr. Coward here, you could say.
With the luck that you'd had so far.
Yeah,
with already someone had fallen off a mountain with no wind.
With no wind.
I'd be scared.
So
I'd be a bit worried.
You could say I'm a coward. You could say I was being sensible. But I floated with John. This might not be a good idea. Is there some other way we could get to the remote pond to see where the giant anaconda supposedly lived? Richard wasn't keen on that. There was floated some talk of perhaps chartering a helicopter to land there, and it was like, hang on, wait a minute, you mean we can fly there? Oh yeah, there's an airstrip right next to it. It's like, okay.
That would have taken away all the fun.
Yeah, well, I did take away all the fun because I said, I think it's too dangerous. If we're going out that time in the morning, someone's already fallen off a mountain. And how long's the walk? 10 hours. That was the other thing.
In the heat
I remember,
again.
10 hours. That was the tipping point for me, because we'd done like a sort of 7-hour walk the day before, and we were in a really messed up way by the end of it. And that wasn't over a mountain. There was one kind of cliff that we had to go up. This was proper borderline mountaineering.
Right.
So we hatched a different plan, that we were going to go somewhere else. Damon said, well, there is somewhere else that anacondas have been sighted. Perhaps we could go there instead. So I was well up for that.
I bet you were.
I was like, yes, that sounds like a great idea. And somehow I managed to convince everyone else. Anyway, that evening we were heading out to this sacred stone, which that again was another big old trek. It's like, you kind of, these places,
you go everywhere on foot.
Yeah. Well, a few times we had vehicles, but not at this point. There were no roads. And where we're going, we don't need roads. It was weird. I mean, we trekked for another sort of probably 2-3 hours that night and back. And the village just kept on going. You'd still see kind of huts, and it was are we still in Taushida? Yeah, this is just where they live, and we're kind of
I thought you meant the village you thought you were getting closer to it, but it was...
We were never out the village.
There's no centre of the village, though, is there?
So, again, I'll drop in some photos of this sacred stone to the villagers called T-Bang Stone.
T-Bang.
Bang. T-Bang. T-Bang. The whole T-Bang. So, T-Bang, there'd been years before, there'd been and it was, by the way, it was sort of about early evening by the time we got to T-Bang Stone. And there was a legend in the village that years before there'd been a sickness that had killed loads of children. And the story goes that T-Bang was this little man who, in the night, he would go around and every child who he would touch would come down with the sickness. And then after they were buried, he would take their bones and he made a necklace out of it. And he would sit on top of this stone, and they said you could hear him up there because you'd hear this noise, which
rattling the bones.
Yeah, rattling the bones.
That's creepy.
So yeah, creepy. But you got to treat it with a lot of respect. So we smoked again, and then we had to head back to the village. And over the course of the trek back, the sun went down, and the flies and mozzies came out, and I have never seen anything like it.
The flies came out at night.
Yeah, it was just, they were swarming. Yeah, oddly, most of the time they weren't as big a problem during the day. I don't know why
Really?
that
That's
was.
bizarre.
Maybe it was too hot even for
Yeah,
them.
too hot for the flies. You know it's hot when the flies stay away.
Because it was always the night that I'd wake up and see my tent covered in.
Did you have to rush into your tent as quickly as you could so that the
Do you
mozzies...
mean like that documentary we watched
Yeah,
yesterday? Yes, I did do that. But anyway, this was, because we were out, in sort of the open countryside. And I'd brought this scarf thing with me. I bought it because I thought it was cool.
Right.
Yeah, I could wear this and
look
be
like
an
an
adventurer.
explorer.
An
Yeah.
adventurer or a kind of 1980s German exchange student, one or the other. But my God, it was the best thing I brought with me because I was able to wear it as a face mask. And these things, they were flying in your eyes as you were walking. They were, my God, it was thick.
A blanket of flies and mozzies.
But I didn't get bitten particularly, I don't think. So
It was probably the cloud of DEET that surrounded
that
you
as well.
wherever you went.
Yeah, probably that. Love my DEET.
He loves his DEET. You should be sponsored by DEET.
DEET, yeah.
DEET, if you're out there.
Sponsor us, please.
He loves you.
Send us the deets.
Good one.
Good one. So we got back eventually through this cloud of flies, had another night there. And the following day, now this is where I start to get a bit woolly about the timeline. I think the next day was we went to look for these anacondas. I've got a feeling we had to trek somewhere. Might have been Point Ranch. Possibly a place called Point Ranch. I was that the day after. I'll get to Point Ranch eventually. But we headed out the next day and we got a lift at some point to another kind of big open savanna where it was effectively swampland. It was grassland, but there was water as well. And as we kind of got there, we found a big anaconda track. I mean, like, it was this thing, it was wide.
You actually saw
The track, yeah.
an anaconda track.
And Damon saw an anaconda slip into the water just
Did
as we
he?
got there. Yeah, we just missed it, apparently.
Were you a little bit worried?
Not really.
No?
I mean, they're not poisonous.
No, but...
There are other things in the grass, potentially, that bother me more, like scorpions and stuff like that. Flies were a bigger issue. I wasn't bothered. I was still Mr. Adventurer at that point. I was glad.
Swallow you whole.
I was feeling quite smug that day because it was like I managed to convince everyone not to climb up a
Oh,
mountain.
right. Okay, so you're like, no anaconda's going to eat me.
And not get blown off by a dragon. So we
I'd love to see anaconda tracks.
yeah,
How big were they?
it was about that wide. So
I thought it was wider, but that's still pretty chunky.
it's a chunky old
And
thing.
how long do anacondas get?
I'm not an expert.
approximately?
I'll put up the length now. Yeah.
Thank you. That's good to know.
Yeah. So it was quite cool, this area as well. We wandered for a bit down to a dried up riverbed, and there was a plant growing there. I've got video of this. The locals use it for tattoos or temporary tattoos. So it was basically like, what's that
a bit
stuff?
like henna.
Henna. It was effectively like henna, and he said, "Oh yeah, we make tattoos." Like, I'll show you. We had with us by this point a guy called Kennard who lived in the village. Kennard, the first time I met him, was wearing a Wendy's shirt, like someone who works in the burger place Wendy's.
Staff member.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Saw this a lot out there, really incongruous clothing, which I don't know whether they got them from kind of Red Cross, or yeah, who knows? But often would see people in the weirdest t-shirts. But he showed us he cut this fruit off this tree, cut it in half, and then he touched the back of all our hands with it. And nothing at first, just looked like a lemon.
Right.
And we were like, oh yeah, what? And he said, just wait. And then gradually it just went black where he'd rubbed.
Oh, wow.
And it was like henna, which henna does
Yeah.
over time, doesn't it? It's not...
No, it's straight
Is
away.
it?
I mean, actually, I suppose, yeah,
You leave
you let
it and then you pick off the bits.
dry,
Yeah.
and then it...
But this was, and I had that black mark on my hand.
You've been marked.
I had it for the whole time I was away.
Yeah, well, henna lasts about 2 weeks.
Yeah, which is probably about the right length of time. So we did that, and then we headed back to Taoshida for lunch, dinner, whatever it was at that point. And now there's parts of my story missing because we were gone for 2 weeks, and I've done the maths in my head, and I don't have enough days. Or some of it all feels like it's compressed.
You've
into
got
sort
some
of a
days
few
missing.
Yeah, I've
Maybe
got
it was
days missing.
the wind malaria.
It was the wind malaria caused,
Time
wind
slippage.
amnesia.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got back and they were preparing our food, so we went down for a dip in the creek, the one where we rinsed our feet when we turned up, and this time it was like, oh, sod it, we'll just get right in. So stripped down to our undies, got in. And within about 10 minutes, these little fish started swarming around us. Like little silver fish things. And then I'm laying there and I feel this little, like a needle in my back.
Oh, they were biting fish.
Yeah. And then, ow, what was that? And then suddenly, like, a swarm of these things just go up my back. That was it. That was the last time I went in the river. And even after that, subsequent time I put my feet in, they started biting my feet. It's like, come on, I can't even use it to, like, rest my feet. It's like they're giving us, like, the first day.
Yeah, the first day they didn't
spot.
bite anyone.
No.
And then they got a taste for you.
Yeah, well, they weren't biting anyone else. Other people were getting in the water and they were just biting me.
Oh, no.
They thought I was making it up.
Maybe they like the taste of DEET.
Yeah, well,
Washing off you.
I think they all thought I was lying. Anyway.
Oh, really? Because no one else got bitten?
No.
Did you have the bite marks to prove it?
Oh, no, it's on my back.
No.
I didn't bite anywhere else. Apart from my feet, but I didn't see any. Anyway. So we got back, had our, given the fish some food, and now it was time for us to go and get our food. And we got back and the meat hanging in the tree, they were making a nice curry, you could smell it. And I noticed there were quite a lot of flies buzzing around the meat. I thought, ooh, that's a bit gross. So I kind of had a wander around the back of the tree, and the rear of this slab of meat was literally a carpet of flies. You couldn't see the meat for the flies. And suffice to say, I didn't eat that night.
Carpet of flies is not an appetising image.
Yeah, I didn't eat that night, and I didn't for any of the rest of the time we were in Taoshida.
You just stopped eating?
I ate the rice. So I didn't need a poo again, which is
it's a double bonus.
Double bonus.
Now, and this was what? This was only like the third day or something.
Something like that, yeah.
And you didn't eat for the rest of the trip?
I had some protein bar type things. I had some crisps in my bag.
You took crisps on a trip?
Yeah. We managed to get,
Wait,
Damon still had food with it anyway.
Oh, okay.
I just didn't, we had...
You didn't eat any more of the curry?
No.
Did you make an excuse, or I've suddenly become a vegetarian?
I'm sure I did. Oh, yeah, not too much, please. And then just pushed... I think I went, what a waste. This is the thing. It's like, Mr. Privileged, like, Westerner. They're all fine with it. And also the monster hunters, whether they'd seen the flies or not, I don't know. I wasn't going to alert them because they were all tucking in and loving it. Whereas I just couldn't. It was like literally a carpet of flies. Even now it just turns my stomach.
You didn't tell anyone else?
No.
Not even afterwards?
No.
So if they're watching this...
Sorry if I made you eat a load of
now.
Fly larvae. So that night, slept that night, and I think we had a plan the next day to go to interview some eyewitnesses who had seen the water tiger. And we were set out again early that day. And I remember Damon telling us, the guy, by the way, is a cannibal. But don't mention it because he's a little bit sensitive about it. So, Christ, what do you mean he's a cannibal? Oh, it's a bit of a long story. But just don't bring it up. Well, we wouldn't have done had you not mentioned it, but okay, we won't mention him being a cannibal. So we arrived at this ranch, Point Ranch, and we were introduced to this guy. His name Joseph, something like that. And the first thing Damon says is, "I'll tell him about that time you ate a man."
Oh no!
And he did tell us.
Was he sensitive about it?
He didn't seem like it. Well,
he was alright. He'd gotten over it by then.
Yeah, he starts telling us his story about how a local chief's son had been in a plane crash up, and he pointed to the mountain that the plane had crashed on. It was like just a small plane. The plane had gone down at the top of the mountain, and this guy, again, I think Joseph may be wrong. He had a reputation for being like the best tracker in the village, so they were asked, or the chief said, "Could you please go up and retrieve my son's body?" Mm-hmm. They'd assumed that hadn't survived because I think there'd been quite a lot of smoke and had been gone for a while. So he got up to the top of the mountain and found the wreck of the plane and found the chief's son's body in it, which unfortunately had been decapitated.
Oh no!
And very badly burnt. So he said he wrapped it in polythene or cling film, or plastic. He'd taken some cling film, put it in tin foil for later. Yeah, so he wrapped it in cling film. He said he put it over his shoulder and he headed on back down. Now, however, I think he said, I may have this wrong, but it got foggy or something. But whatever, the weather changed and he got lost. The best tracker in the village got lost. Mm-hmm. So at some point, he got hungry, and he said, so I cut off the arm and ate it, and used it as food. So the body already missing a head was now missing an arm.
Oh no! And
we said to him, right, okay, what did that taste like? And he said, it's fine. It's already cooked. So he gets back to the village. He says, "Chief, I found your son.
Need to cook it.
I found your son. Bad news. Yeah, when I found him, he was missing a head and an arm." Oh, thank you. Well, these teeth marks. It's like kind of what? No. Anyway, but he told us about the water tiger. I think I have some video that I can put up. We'd heard from a guy called Kennard.
Had he actually seen a water tiger himself?
Yeah.
And Kennard had as well.
I think Kennard had seen the die. So we were starting to hear about these things.
The die is the Bigfoot type creature.
Yeah. You're leaning off the camera.
Oh, whoops.
So we had started to hear, stories of the creatures in the area. All the eyewitness descriptions were very different from one another. The water tiger was white, or some people said it was striped. And
so could that mean there's more than one?
Well, I think the monster hunters had a theory that it could have like a seasonal colouring, so it changed from one season to the next.
Right.
What do you know about the water tiger?
Water tigers like this, when you throw pepper into the water, like they comes out from the water and like just attack people, and when everything's cooled down, eat out everybody and just disappear back into the waters. Is what we know about water tigers.
What's the water tiger supposed to look like?
It's just like a jaguar, I guess.
Spotted. Oh. All right. And do you know anybody that's actually seen one?
Yes, he told me you see a couple of them this rainy season gone.
And what's this gentleman's name?
Elmo.
Elmo. Oh, hello, Elmo. And could you describe what the water tiger looked like? How big it was? And about
spotted one.
Spotted, and and was it like a cat, or was it more like an otter, or what?
Huh?
Was it? No, he said like they came out to eat fish, and
they come out to eat fish. Let's stop off there. They was eating fish there.
Yeah.
Like if you trouble them now, they attack you.
They didn't explain how some people said it was basically like a big otter, and some people just said it was no, it's literally a tiger that lives in the water.
Oh, all right. That's a bit because, like, for example, you can get white cat
Yeah.
and black cat. So if there was more than one water tiger, that would explain. But if one looks like an otter, and the other looks like a tiger, that's a little bit
Yes. So
more complicated.
I mean, one guy was telling us as well about the die.
He told me that his father was in the Essequibo River, and like one of the men, they want to like ease his bowels, and he went out the boat and just hear him screaming going. And when they went after him, he lose his portion and he didn't want to speak. He was like dumb all the time. So what was wrong, and just eating and keep dumb all the time till about 7 days after. Then he started to speak, and he said, what was it really? He said he just saw a big hairy hand turn his face away and just grabbed him around his waist and was scaring him all the time.
Other people describe them as using tools.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, so they weren't, we sort of would ask, could they possibly just be, orangutans or something like that, which I know don't live in South America probably. I don't know. But anyway,
So it sounds like quite a few people had seen both the Dai and the water tiger.
Now, the sense I was getting from all these people, it was more a folklore thing. Even though there were eyewitness accounts, it felt like a folklore thing. However, there was one story that kept coming up that people talked about, was about these red-faced people who were 2.5 foot to 3 foot tall. And Kennard, I think it was Kennard, described that he would see one every morning on the way to school. He used to get a lift off his brother on his motorbike, who would take him to school in the mornings. And every morning they would stop at this bush, and this little red-faced guy would get out, jump on the back, and then carry on with them for a little way, and then jump off again and disappear back into the forest.
He'd get a lift with them every day.
Yeah, and this guy, sometimes they brought tobacco for him, this little guy.
Right.
And this was a recurring thing that people kept mentioning, these red-faced pygmies, which, I don't know if that's an offensive term, but pygmies were a race, I think. But that's how people described them. And that they love tobacco, weirdly. So
lots of people love tobacco.
yes,
so
okay, I know,
weird.
but it was a recurring thing.
Yeah.
That sometimes you'd leave tobacco out for them.
Yeah,
Some
as a
people,
gift.
Some people describe the red faces as war paint or tribal paint. Others said no, it was a natural colouring, like those red-faced monkeys that live somewhere. So it was. So that was weird. 'Cause of course, the monster hunters were very excited because this was something they hadn't gone out there to find. They were, potentially discovered a new cryptid, new species that wasn't on any record anywhere. But it was getting weird, the number of people who described it. So we headed back from Point Ranch, I think. Again, I could have the day slightly mixed up here. We had a trip out to the rainforest. This was the first time. So everywhere we'd been so far, apart from the bus journey over, had been savannah and mountains or burnt forests. And we had a trip out to a fish farm. We had been taken to a fish farm to meet a guy who, Ernesto, I think he'd been a chief, but now ran this fish farm in the middle of the rainforest. It was, fish farm makes it sound like there were buildings. There were no buildings.
Right.
We just got a lift out there. And he was wearing a Sideshow Bob t-shirt. This is what I'm talking about when I say
another
people
one of
are...
the t-shirts.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about this giant anaconda you saw?
Well, I saw it in Corsad Mountain, Corsad, about 30 miles from here.
Yeah. And how large was it?
It was 30 feet.
30 feet.
30 feet, yeah.
How far around the body?
Yeah.
How far around was it? How wide was it?
It was about 2 feet. No?
And how long ago was this?
It's about 10 years now.
10 years.
And he would sort of say sometimes, you can hear them walking around at night, because he camped out in the rainforest, and he said you can hear the die crashing through and they make a noise, and he copied the noise as well.
I was going to say, how would he know that the walking around was a die necessarily?
Yeah.
But they have a particular noise.
Apparently, yeah. So he told us about that. Then he brought up the red-faced people.
Oh, him as well.
Yeah, this guy was miles from anywhere else, you know.
What did he say about the red-faced people?
I can't remember. I think we asked him. Might have it on video.
Their face are red.
The little red-faced man.
And they call them bush people.
Yeah, bush people.
Bush people. What do you think the bush people are? Do you think they're people or are they animals?
I can say they're well, people.
People, yeah.
Is the red face, is that painted on or
No, I think that is natural.
natural?
Wow.
Have you seen them?
Yes. They do appear to people.
The bush
And
people.
that's tobacco. Their food, tobacco.
They eat tobacco.
They eat it?
They smoke it.
Smoke
Smoke it or eat it. Bodies. But they're very chubby, you know.
Very chubby and fat.
Yeah.
Are they covered in hair or just skin?
Just skin.
Do they wear clothes?
No, they don't like
No clothes.
just skin.
And when you say they live in trees, do you mean they live like high up in the trees?
Under the
or
trees.
Under the trees?
Yeah, under the tree.
So they dig sort of...
No, just stay under the tree, no? If the tree leaning like this, then they stay under it.
Okay. So they just shelter under the tree.
From there, I think we went to we'd got a tip off about a crocodile or alligator that had two tails and was bright red.
What?
Yeah.
A red alligator
Yeah.
with two tails?
Yeah. Sorry, I know alligators and crocodiles aren't the same thing, but what's a caiman? Is that an alligator?
I think caiman's a crocodile.
Caiman. It was a caiman with two tails. Let's just call it a caiman with
Red
two tails. It
caiman.
was red. And we were driven out again. This was in rainforest to where this red caiman had been sighted. This was when it got really brilliantly kind of Indiana Jones, because we were dropped off, sort of trekked a little way through the rainforest to a cave, the cave where these things had been seen.
The cave in the rainforest?
Yeah.
All right.
It was
This is getting properly
This was proper
exciting.
Indiana Jones. But as we went into the cave, all these vampire bats flew out.
No
It
way.
was awesome.
No
That was
way.
probably my favourite moment of the entire trip,
Oh.
because it was like, yeah, this is pure Spielberg now. We're kind of in, there was a waterfall in the cave. There was like sort of big drop.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
That was cool.
How big was this cave?
Tiny. But
Well, it was big enough to have a waterfall.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know how the entrance. I mean, there was no way of us getting any further without caving equipment.
Right.
So we only went in the entrance. But outside the cave, the plants were huge and the trees were huge. And this was my first sort of proper experience of being in the rainforest.
Oh, wow.
I remember outside it, there was an anthill, and this thing was taller than me. It was about 10 foot tall, this ant hill, which had these ants going outside. And these ants were massive as well.
Right.
And as well, I remember Damon at one point, he was talking about there were these things flying around. He said, "Oh yeah, if they bite you, they like rip out a chunk of the skin. It really hurts."
Oh, gross.
And he said, "Oh, I'll see if I can get it to land on me." And he did. Right now, I'll see if I can get it to bite me. And he did. It just starts bleeding.
He egged it on to bite him.
Yeah.
No way.
So we're going back in the truck, again driving back through sort of a bit of a jungle path, and I think the guys were all talking about the red-faced people, which were, everyone was very excited about. And then Damon, my mate Damon, who liked Coldplay and Sorry Mother, he said really quietly, just went, yeah, well, of course I've seen them as well. It was like, I'm sorry. And
Damon
it
had
was
seen
like a real hairs on the back of their neck moment.
It's like a little person, not hairy, but with a very red face.
Yeah.
I'd heard it before, but I saw it's one of those things that keep in the back of your mind, but until you experience it yourself, then you really believe. We were camping in Paipan Creek, the valley, before you go up to the village, and it was the youngest sister-in-law was sleeping on my left, and another girl was on the right. And I just remember getting up in the night, because we were lying down obviously on your back, and I saw this. His head was below the tent door, so he can't be very tall. He was just staring at me. Of course, I was terrified. You don't expect something like that in your tent. but I couldn't move. I couldn't even move the head or arms or anything. So I realized I was paralyzed with fear. When I finally snapped out of it and got to hit my sister-in-law to wake her up and look back, it wasn't there anymore. But it was it felt like minutes that I was looking at him and he was just staring at him. It was very unnerving. Never since then I experienced anything similar, but that made me a believer in the
Did he seem aggressive a little more or not?
No, I don't know why he was just staring at me, but didn't make any threatening move or say anything or didn't twitch or anything. He was just staring at you. That was weird.
But I was starting to feel, I felt a long way from home. And the next day we were heading to, I think, another area where I think either the water tiger or the giant anacondas had been seen. And we stopped en route. We were going to get picked up. We had to basically walk back the journey that we'd done there, the sort of 7-hour trek. Down the cliff this time.
Oh, no way.
And we got to this, again, another sort of ranch or outpost where we were just waiting for quite a while for this truck to get us. We were there for a good few hours, I think. I remember just laying with my head on my pack, exhausted, hot, homesick. And the guys were all talking. I remember them having a conversation about Chris Clark had started designing whimsical cryptids. So I like the word whimsical. I can't help it. I laugh every time. Yeah, and he was describing these whimsical cryptids that he designed. And so it just snapped in me, and I said, I need to go home.
Oh, the whimsical cryptids were your last straw.
No, they were just part of it. But I think everyone there they all knew each other. Mm. Although I liked them all. Chris, I think, had always been a bit wary of me. Mm-hmm. But I think he sort of saw me as a journalist as opposed to someone.
So maybe he wasn't sure whose side you were on.
Yeah, I think, was I going to take the piss out of them? That sort of thing. So I think Chris was wary around me.
Which makes sense.
Which makes total sense. Yeah, and but the rest of them I got on with great. Richard's got a silly sense of humour, and I got on well with Lisa. John, as I described, wound me up a few times, but I liked him, and we could chat. John straight Orin. So I'm just checking the time before the camera cuts out. Yeah. So I was just, I'd kind of, even though we were sort of about a week in probably by this point, I was done. I mean, really done. And I remember telling them I need to go home. I said, I can't do the next bit.
Because how long did you have left? Another week?
Yeah, effectively. And a week was, I'm not built for the outdoors. You know me. I like watching telly.
I mean,
that's
it's a challenge to get you to go around the park once a week. So
I go more than once a week.
Do you?
Yeah, thank you.
Do you?
I go twice at least.
Oh, really?
That's 3 times.
Really? 3 times a week?
Don't. I'm sorry. Camera.
You can cut this bit out.
No, I can't. We've only got one camera.
Oh, you've cut other stuff out.
Right, tip forwards a bit. So I was done, but what happened next was a real turning point, and it's why I sort of, even now, even though I don't see him often, I really love Richard and Lisa. Both of them were so lovely to me and so disappointed at the thought of me going. And I think, and John was as well, I don't think Chris said anything, but John was as well. And I think all of them kind of wanting me to stay made me think, okay, I do sort of belong here with these mad people. And I think Richard said, come for a walk with me. So we went and had a walk down to, there's another river, I think, and there were some cashew trees growing there, and I think he said to me, or someone said to me, have you had a cashew? Well, yeah, I've had a cashew, but no, the cashew, not the cashew nut, the fruit. And they pluck the cashew off and take a bite of that. The weirdest thing, really sweet, but immediately dries your mouth out like this.
Which is not what you need when you're in the savannah in the heat.
Really strange. But I remember him, he was just, and I could sense him really trying to cheer me out because he was just quoting Viz at me. And I was so touched by that. And all of it. And all of them wanted me to stay, that it was like, okay, I'll stay. So I had made up my mind by that point. That's it. I'm in now for the long haul, even though, you know, Lisa had broken her finger and, well, I mean, worse was still to come. But but this truck came to pick us up. And I remember the truck, as everything did there, breaking down. They had to.
Oh no! Another breakdown.
The suspension broke, and I remember they drove to a garage. This thing limped to a garage, and the way they fixed it was someone came out with a block of wood, and they just hammered this block of wood into where the suspension was meant to be. So the suspension was literally a block of solid wood.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, and it took us. This was cool because it took us out again over another savannah, and this savannah was just like endless flat. We had mountains in the far distance, but we drove for ages. It was great dust sort of being kicked up us in the back.
It's better than walking.
Yeah. But
savannah.
it was also brutal because it had these ridges. The ground was just like impacted hard, as I later found out, because of another bushfire. But then these really hard plants that gave it this sort of bobbly effect. And it was like, like this as we were going. It was also where we were camping. So that night we had to lay on these ridges.
Bumpy ground.
Yeah, I mean, you know, with spiky plants everywhere. Oh, yeah, and also we were warned, the sun's going down. Be careful because snakes tend to come out of dust.
Oh, no.
But we got dropped off. It was amazing. There was a anteater and its baby. I'll show you the video, which I'll drop in now. Anteater with a baby on its back was running across. And I remember Damon going and sort of like shepherding it towards us.
So cute.
At which point, I think it was Richard said something about, don't get it too close because apparently they've been known to disembowel people with their claws. Okay. But it was, you know, had this anteater, you know, shepherding towards us, and the sun was going down. I was feeling better about the whole thing. I got into my tent, ready to sleep on the bumpy ground, but I was, you know, exhausted enough that it didn't matter. And then I heard this zip of someone unzipping their tent, followed by up and down.
Music with zips, sort of thing.
This went on for about an hour, right?
What was it?
I knew it was Orin's tent, which was next to me. I knew Orin was making music with his...
I detect a little bit of...
It went on for ages, right? And I lay there. Sorry, Orin, if you're watching this, but I lay there fantasizing about unzipping my tent and going out and jumping up and down on his and flattening him into the ground. I was close to snapping and killing him at that point.
But what was it? Him actually zipping and unzipping his tent?
Wake up the next morning. Yeah, I was making music last night in my tent. It was awesome. that was literally what he was doing. For about an hour. And everyone else, because they were all far enough away, like, oh, really? Where you are? Having gotten over nearly killing Orin, he did become a bit of a hero later that day. So we were on this savannah. I think we possibly had all taken too long to get ready. So the sun had come out and it was hot. And there was no shade in any direction.
What time of day did you generally have, like, there was one
Normally
day you left at 4?
Yeah, well,
was it usually around that
one day
time,
we were meant to leave at 4.
Oh.
So we were expected to leave before the sun got too hot, but we'd left it too late, and because of where we were, there was no exploring to do because it would mean walking for hours in any direction.
It was all flat.
So there was one little, I hesitate to say oasis, but grubby bush with a pond that was about, I don't know, 100 feet away from where we'd camped. Didn't want to get too close because it was water. It would have been full of mozzies.
Right.
But so we had to wait it out. So what Damon had suggested was just wait until the evening. So I don't quite know.
day.
I don't quite know what the plan had been.
Right.
But we'd gone to this place, woken up and told we can't go anywhere. It's too hot. But tonight we'll walk to where we're going.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you spent the day at the Oasis?
Wasn't an oasis, and we were nowhere near the oasis because of the mozzies that it would attract. More on that in a moment. Now, the heat of the only shade was our tents. So I spent most of the day rotating around my tent. Inside the tent, the heat was indescribable. It was like inside of an oven. And sitting outside, at no point could I get fully covered. There'd always be some part of me exposed. We had, I think, a bucket which had water in it, but that started to run out. So John and Chris, who was 60 at the time and fitter than anyone, never complained, and John, who never complained, they volunteered to go and try and find water.
Wow. What, on foot?
On foot.
Not knowing, just taking a gamble, really, which direction they went in.
Yeah. So off they went, and we sort of watched them recede into the distance as we got hotter and hotter. At one point, it got so unbearable that Richard said, "I'm going to go and stand in the water."
Oh no! He went to the Oasis.
Yep. And he just stood in it. I think he rolled up his trouser legs and went and stood in it. And it was, I think that Damon had sort of said, "Yeah, not a good idea," but he went and did it. And the couple of days later, he showed me his mosquito bites. And it was basically one bite over his entire body, and you couldn't stick your finger between the bites. I mean, he literally showed me his arse, is what he did. Yeah, I've never seen
so they
anything
were able
like
to
it.
bite him through his clothing?
There was no way they were staying out of his clothing. It was like, you could see the cloud of them from where...
Really?
Yeah, he didn't care. He was too hot. We all were. But anyway, a few hours passed. No John, no Chris. A few more hours passed. No John,
back?
No Chris. And eventually we see them on the horizon carrying something on their head. Wow. And they'd found a ranch and managed to buy, wasn't water unfortunately, but it was a tray of 24 little kind of fizzy orange drinks.
Wow.
But my God, it was so good. So suffice to say, after that point, I loved John.
Yeah, he saved the day.
And Chris, and just the sugar. But that night, I got hit with heat stroke.
Oh, after a whole day
sitting
in the sun.
We had to pack out as the sun was starting to come down.
I'm surprised you didn't get heat stroke up until that point. Especially the day that you were on the mountain where you ran out of water.
Yeah, but that was because we weren't moving, so there was no air, nothing, no breeze, and having to pack away my tent, and I was confused. I felt sick. I didn't know what I was doing. Of course, everyone else was in much the same state, so there was no...
What are the symptoms of heat stroke?
Dizziness, nausea. I had all
Headache?
of that. Headache. It was probably dehydration as well, to be honest. And everyone was in the same situation, so I couldn't ask anyone, "Can you help me with my tent?" I remember I basically just scrunched it up and shoved it in my pack. I couldn't do anything more. I just didn't have the clarity of mind. And I think by this point as well, two other things had happened. One, Kennard, who was our guide from Taoshida, he'd brought a bow and arrow with him. And we saw him quite spectacularly shoot a caiman.
What?
Got it right in the head. I mean, the
no way.
The arrow bent. You sort of saw how kind of...
That's how thick their skin is.
And that was our dinner that night. That's what we were going to have for dinner.
I have to check if caiman is a crocodile or alligator. I think it's crocodile.
I'll put it
I'm
up
not sure.
now. So he'd caught us that and just slung it over his shoulder. Wow. It was only that big, maybe, with tail. Sorry. Yeah, that big.
What did it taste like?
I've not got there. You're jumping ahead.
Oh, I thought you were up to the bit that you were eating.
No, that's what we were going to have. No,
Oh,
this
I
is
see.
we packed up our tents.
Oh, right,
So
okay.
that had happened.
Yeah.
Also, Lisa, her feet were suffering really,
As well as her thumb.
really badly. Yeah, I mean, she thankfully brought a walking stick with her, but yeah, as well as her thumb, her feet had started to move in a bad way. But we still had God knows how many miles walk ahead of us that night to get where we were going, and it was as bad as the first day's walk.
Really?
Because we were once again crossing through bushfire territory. You're hanging off camera again.
Oh, whoops. What, the petrified wood?
Yeah, but this was all low bushes. But it was the worst thing was the ash on the ground. Every footstep just kicked up ash. My shoes were filled with it. And we were all, I think even possibly Damon at this point, I think had found it tougher than even he was expecting. Yeah, because he'd stayed with us that day. But I mean, they led the way, him and Kennard, you know, getting the locals are way fitter than us Westerners. But on this walk, this endless bloody walk to this pond called Cashew Pond, which we found out why it was called Cashew Pond when we got there. But we, Lisa and Richard started to drag behind because Richard was helping Lisa, who couldn't really walk. But there was, you know, we did have a satellite phone, but there was no calling anyone local to come and pick us up or anything. But Richard and Lisa got quite badly left behind. We eventually reached this place, this I don't know what you call it, clearing in forest. It wasn't quite jungle, but it was a clearing next to this lake, stroke pond. I mean, and when Richard got there, he went nuts. I mean, like, we're talking red in the face, mad at all of us for leaving him behind, or him and Lisa. And he was probably right to be honest, but we weren't in any fit state. But then, you know, nor was Richard, and yet he was helping her. But, you know, we just needed to get to where we were going. But I remember that night, I had nothing left. Like, that was, you know, I'd had my emotional moment, but this was the point at which physically I couldn't do anything. The heat stroke had so debilitated me. Just checking it was still recording. The heat stroke is so bugging me up that I just didn't know that I could go on. In fact, I didn't think I knew I couldn't go on at that point. So,
well, heat stroke is debilitating in and of itself. You just need to rest and rehydrate. So having to do a trek with it.
Well, what happened that night was they went down to the pond to get, this was Damon, I think, to get water. We couldn't swim in the pond because the reason it was called Cashew Pond is because it was full of piranhas.
Oh, you're joking.
Which were the same colour as the cashew fruit.
No way.
Literally piranhas. So we couldn't even wash. You
don't want them biting your back.
No. So I remember getting in the tent and I had a wash with moist bum wipes that I brought with me. They were hot, but they were wet.
Yeah.
And I went through the entire packet. I mean, I wasn't using them for poo, let's face it, because I wasn't pooing. But I went through the entire packet to try and get this filth off me. And the others, I remember, because I used to sleep with my tent flaps open with just a fly sheet. I remember leaning over at one point, my belly hanging out. You know, couldn't even bring myself to suck it in as I used to back then, which I don't bother anymore. And I remember Richard saying, "Bloody hell, Biffo, you've got a belly on you. I thought I was fat." And I didn't even reply. Didn't even say anything.
You didn't have any energy left to reply.
And they all somehow got a second wind.
Oh, really?
Because I remember they cooked the caiman.
Yeah.
Over a fire. And they basically, it was like, jacket potato wrapped in tinfoil, the skin.
They cooked it in its skin?
Yeah, but the meat inside cooks, but the skin doesn't sort of burn off. You don't eat the skin.
Right.
Anyway, but that was it. I crashed that night.
I didn't have any
I didn't
caiman.
go. They were all like, "Oh, Biffo, come and join us. And I just couldn't. I was done. Woke up the next morning and I had caiman for breakfast. It was awesome. It was like they I think someone gave me a lump of the tail. This is back when I ate meat, I would have eaten it anyway. Also, I knew no flies had been on it because it had been sealed.
Because of the skin, right.
And basically you just peel the skin off. And it was just like chicken. It was like
Really?
white meat, but quite flaky like fish, but it was really nice.
Bizarre.
And it was lovely because it was like, oh my God, protein, which I hadn't had for days.
You hadn't eaten.
So we got back to Letham, and I think I was detecting
Is
that
Letham the village?
Letham was the town with the red dust and the few
The
shops.
first place where you stayed in the hotel?
The hotel, yeah.
Ah, right, with the ant's nest
With
in
the
it.
ant's nest.
Okay.
We got back there and we
I
had
see.
a hotel room booked. I think the plan had been to go somewhere else from there.
Bet that was nice.
It was I think it was the same hotel, but John and I it was a nice room.
Or did it just seem like a nice room
it
after
was,
you
it was
spent
big.
so long in tents?
I remember it was all wood panelled. It was big. I think we had a double bed each. We had slightly worrying that the bathroom was just like a glass panel, which wasn't a great deal of privacy, and the bathroom was opposite John's bed, but it had air conditioning and beds.
Oh,
and I remember both of us
Bliss.
were like, yeah, this is good.
And a shower.
Had a shower. Oh,
Lovely.
So, and I remember that night we went and had lunch at some chief's house. I think we got a truck out to some chief's house, and that was cool because I think we were all feeling refreshed by that point. We'd all had our shower, and yeah, we'd had to lay on the bed for a few hours, and we were all feeling good. And like spirits were high. I think spirits were really high at that point, and I mean, I felt terrible because we were being waited on by these. It felt again horribly sort of colonial, but that was just their custom. Really, was that they didn't sit with us to eat. They made food for us and we ate it.
Is this at the chief's house?
Yeah,
Right.
Remember there was a kid who kept running and slapping Damon. Kept running up, slap like that, and running off, cackling. And he was clearly had developmental issues, but he was known in the village as Dummy, which I don't think political correctness had ever quite reached that village. But yeah, I remember eating and this massive toad jumping into the room as well while we were eating, because there was no glass in the windows or anything. I don't think there was even a door on the door frame.
Who'd want
You're
a
leaning
door?
away again.
Oh, who would want a door in that heat?
Yeah. So I think we may have had a beer there as well. I think someone produced some beer.
Oh, I bet that was nice.
Yeah.
Refreshing.
And we went back and we sat outside the hotel and had another drink. That was good. Oh, cold beer. And Damon and I think Kennard were sort of talking about how, the different tribes once would have been at war, but now they're brothers because they sort of felt that the black community were taking over their land, and the rest of the world were kind of mining it and so on. And I remember sitting there as well. At one point, just this massive pack of horses just ran down the street, like dozens of them, just like running down the
wild
street.
Horses.
I don't know why. I mean, they didn't have any saddles on, but they just suddenly ran past.
That is surreal.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, so things felt good that night. There was just sort of a nice kind of camaraderie with everyone. And the next morning, because Kennard, this was the other thing, Kennard, who had kind of taken the brunt of Richard and Lisa's anger when they'd been left behind, which again justifiable. Lisa's toenail had fallen off, and it was described to me that the back of her foot was flapping off like this. I never saw it, thank God. But the next morning, Kennard gave her his bow and arrow as a sorry. Yeah, bless him. Because I remember him, that was the thing. Because I remember him coming down and he was doing this. And we were like, all right, Kennard, because he'd always been so jolly. And he was like,
he felt terrible. Oh.
No, he was doing like full on like when my dog used to fart. Kind of the face he used to pull. That kind of and Lisa was being really nice to him to try and make him feel better, but then he gave her his bow and arrow. It was proper bow and arrow.
That's a big gift.
Yeah.
Oh,
squidge
sorry.
off the screen.
I think we should maybe.
It's fine. It's
zoom
too late.
out,
We're nearly done this
'cause
part.
I can't see you if I sit too close.
I think we should wrap up here because
Okay.
we've done nearly an hour.
Oh my goodness. Yes, let's wrap up here. How much more is there?
There's
to the story?
plenty more.
How many days do you have left at this point?
Well, I go back to Georgetown after this,
Ah,
where I
okay.
have the
There is more to
scariest,
come.
the scariest night of my life.
Right. Oh well, this is a. Let's just
So
leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that. So we've left it at the point. Breakfast the next day. Kennard has given Lisa his bow and arrow. Aww. And yeah, the weirdest thing is yet to come for me. The
There's-
scariest things are yet to come for me.
There's weirder things to come.
Yeah. I haven't told them about the shaman yet. Not the acid house dance band. A shaman who could shapeshift. And the
Looking forward
anthills.
to this.
So tune in for part 3
Yes.
of this epic tale.
Biffo's story time.
Yeah. Bye everyone.
Bye-bye.
Oh wait.
Oh no! What?
Mask. I bought this by the way in the Damon's village off his cousin.
That's
His
still
brother-in-law.
pretty cool.
That's it. Oh, apparently it's sacred wood from a sacred tree.
Oh, okay, so let's not flick it.
Oh, well, it's a shame that it's got a nice acoustic. The day before it.
That's the thing to do with sacred wood. That's why it tastes. That's why you get the horrible taste in your mouth because you're disrespecting it.
Oh yeah, also I'll smoke on it afterwards. I'll put a cigarette out of his mouth. Bye.
Bye.